A new investigation reveals fired police officers in our state are disproportionately hired from tribal police departments for their next jobs. The outlet InvestigateWest helped discover the disparity, saying the rate is 4 times higher than a non-tribal law enforcement department. So to understand why this practice is happening and the risk it can pose, we're joined by the reporter behind this story, Melanie Henshaw. Thank you for being here, Melanie.
Hi, thank you so much for having me tonight.
So first off, can you explain the term wandering officers and how many of them you looked into?
Absolutely. So a wandering officer is a term that refers to a police officer who's been fired by one agency, and instead of leaving the profession, they choose to continue as a cop and go on to get hired at another agency. I looked at more than 11,000 employment records as part of our analysis alongside the Invisible Institute, and that included more than 1,000 officers with firings on their records.
What kind of risk can these wandering officers pose to the public, particularly tribal communities?
Right. So research shows that these officers are subject to more civilian complaints, more likely to be accused of various types of misconduct, and that ranges from misconduct like sexual misconduct to failing to meet professional standards. And critics that I spoke with are especially concerned because tribal communities already face a disproportionate risk of police violence and misconduct. Native Americans are actually the race that is most likely to be killed by police.
Well, which tribal departments have hired the most wandering officers according to your research?
Our research found that 22 tribal police departments within the state of Washington hired multiple wandering officers, and that the departments that hired the most were actually the Nooksack Tribal Police Department and the Chehalis Tribal Police Department.
Do you know, or do you have any indication from your in-depth reporting on why tribal police departments end up hiring these officers in the first place? We know, obviously, they don't have a clean record, so how are they getting these jobs?
Right. So my reporting really looks at this unique position that tribal police departments are in. Tribal governments are wholly sovereign entities, so they retain the capacity to set standards to hire their own officers. But still, a number of them have chosen to enter into an interagency agreement with Washington state that allows their officers to become certified and provides greater latitude for these officers to make arrests of people who are not considered Native or who are not Native American, and also allows for a little better cohesion between state and tribal agencies in terms of places where gaming is present, for example, like casinos. And so it's really a combination of issues where these tribal departments lack a lot of capacity to hire and adequately investigate the folks who they have as candidates, but also they face a number of really chronic, serious staffing shortages. So essentially, the position that some tribal police departments are in is, do we want to be understaffed, or do we want to hire an officer who has a less than desirable employment history, which may include things like misconduct and being fired at once or possibly multiple times?
Well, our state has an agency to investigate, these so-called bad police officers, so theoretically trying to prevent them from getting back into positions of power. Is this a checks and balances issue? Is there a gap in the system since, there's obviously a huge difference from these reservations and these tribes and, state and federally?
So the agency that is responsible for denying, revoking, or approving policing certifications, the Criminal Justice Training Commission, has a case backlog of more than 1,500 cases. So these are complaints that have been submitted or officers who have been fired where the agency reports that there has been misconduct that occurred. And these cases have been languishing in a backlog, sometimes for years. And while these investigations are on the back burner or have not yet been conducted, these officers move around to different departments, finding employment without it necessarily showing up on their record as being fully investigated and misconduct having been found. What we're really looking at here is a combination of capacity and also issues on the part of law enforcement agencies who are not adequately reporting misconduct when it does occur, and according to audits, not swiftly reporting officer firings as the law requires.
Well, very briefly, and I know this is a complicated topic and a lot of work went into this investigation, can you tell us what's being done to fix this issue? Are state lawmakers aware of what's going on?
I spoke with lawmakers who work on this issue, and they do think that this is something that they need to look into. There's some difficulty here because, again, tribes are a separate jurisdiction and the state is not able to tell the tribes what to do, essentially. But lawmakers have told me that this is an issue that is alarming to them, and they are looking into it.
Melanie and Shaw, thank you for your reporting.
Thank you so much for having me.